He had nothing but calloused hands, dusty clothes, and dreams too big for the size of his village. Every morning, before the sun rose, Aarav, the farmer's son, would walk barefoot through the field his father had tended for decades, dry, cracked, and silent. The soil no longer promised life, yet his father kept planting with hope, whispering, "The earth gives to those who don't stop believing." But Aarav's dreams weren't just about growing crops. He wanted to build something greater, machines that could help farmers everywhere, inventions that could make the soil sing again. The villagers laughed. "Dreams don't grow here," they said. "Only dust does." Yet, as he stood beneath the dawn sky, watching golden light touch the empty fields, Aarav whispered to himself, "Then I'll be the first seed that does." Because sometimes the biggest harvest begins with one impossible dream. The village of Devgar lay in the heart of endless farmland, with the soil cracked under the sun and dreams dried before they could take root. Aarav's family had lived there for generations, their lives tied to the rhythm of planting and praying. His father, Raghav, was a quiet man who believed that hard work was the only path to survival. "Don't chase the sky when the ground beneath you is still hungry," he often said. Aarav listened, but his heart stirred with something different, a longing for more than survival. Each morning, he carried buckets of water to their field, the handles biting into his palms. The crops barely grew that season. The rain had forgotten their land again. Aarav watched his father's back bend lower each day as he worked the dry soil, his face lined with worry and silent endurance. "Maybe next year," his father would say, though hope was fading in his voice. Days turned into weeks, and Aarav's dreams grew heavier with doubt. Every morning, the villagers mocked him as he scavenged for old metal and broken tools from the junkyard by the road. "What will you build from scraps?" they laughed. "You can't even afford a new hoe." Aarav smiled faintly and said nothing. But inside, every word struck like a hammer, not on his confidence, but on his determination. He began to work secretly under the shade of an old banyan tree, piecing together a small water pump from discarded pipes and gears. He didn't have blueprints or schooling, only imagination and patience. The days were scorching, his fingers cut and blistered, yet the thought of bringing water to his dying fields kept him going. Still, each failure whispered fear into his mind. The machine sputtered, leaked, and stopped. His father's disappointed glance grew heavier. "Aarav," Raghav sighed, "dreams don't grow crops." That night, Aarav sat beside the broken machine, feeling both defeated and alive. "Maybe they're right," he murmured. "Maybe I'm just chasing clouds." He looked at his cracked hands, empty, tired, and yet unwilling to give up. The conflict raged within him. One side begged him to surrender, the other urged him to try one more time. He closed his eyes and remembered his mother's words from years ago. "Even dry soil can bloom if the sea believes." With a deep breath, he tightened the bolts once more. The sun rose over the fields as Aarav turned the handle again. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, with a trembling sound, a drop of water burst from the pipe, the first drop of hope. The first drop became 2, then 3, and soon a fragile trickle of water began to flow. Aarav couldn't believe it. His trembling hands caught the cool stream as it spilled over the dry soil. He laughed, a sound half joy, half disbelief. For the first time, the parched land shimmered with life. But the victory was short-lived. The pump sputtered again and stopped. Still, Aarav didn't despair this time. He had seen proof that it could work. Over the next few weeks, he threw himself into the project completely. From dawn until dusk, he studied old machines at the town's repair shop, watching, asking questions, and sketching notes on torn paper. The mechanic, impressed by the boy's persistence, began to teach him small things: how pressure worked, how valves sealed, how patience was more important than parts. Aarav listened as if each word was a treasure. Back home, the villagers watched in silence as he rebuilt the pump, this time stronger, steadier, smarter. Even his father, though skeptical, began to linger nearby, pretending to fix tools just to watch his son's quiet determination. Every test, every failure, Every drop that refused to come only strengthened Aarav's resolve. Then, one evening, as the sky turned golden, he turned the handle again. The pump shuddered, and water burst forth in a steady stream, spraying across the cracked field like rain returned from exile. His father dropped his tools, rushing forward, disbelief flooding his eyes. The neighbors gathered, silent at first, then cheering. The once dead land drank deeply, and within days, small green shoots began to rise. Aarav stood there, drenched in sweat and sunlight, realizing that he hadn't just built a water pump. He had built proof that dreams don't depend on wealth, only on vision and endurance. The next morning, his father placed a weathered hand on his shoulder. "I was wrong," Raghav said softly. "You didn't just grow crops, son. You grew hope." And for the first time, Aarav smiled. Not because he had succeeded, but because he had believed long enough to make it real. Months passed, and the once barren fields of Aarav's family farm now shimmered with golden wheat under the morning sun. Birds circled overhead, the air rich with life and laughter. What was once a forgotten patch of earth had become the pride of the village, and all because one boy refused to stop dreaming. Farmers from nearby towns began visiting, curious about how a young boy had managed what even experienced men couldn't. Aarav never bragged. He simply smiled and said, "The soil isn't poor, it just needs someone to believe in it long enough to see what it can become." His words carried more than wisdom. They carried proof. His father, once hardened by disappointment, had changed too. He worked beside Aarav every morning, not with orders or criticism, but with gratitude and quiet pride. "I thought strength came from hands," he admitted one day, "but it really comes from the heart." Aarav smiled, "And from thinking big, even when everyone calls it foolish." One afternoon, as the village children played near the well, Aarav noticed a boy watching him, small, shy, and holding a cracked bucket. "Do you really think someone like me could grow something here?" the boy asked hesitantly. Aarav knelt beside him, dipping his hand into the clear water that once seemed impossible to find. "You don't need to have much," he said gently. "Just start with belief. Even a single seed grows if you give a hope." That night, as the stars stretched across the sky, Aarav sat on the edge of the field. The wind carried the soft rustle of crops, like whispers of the earth thanking him for not giving up. He looked at his hands, rough and scarred, and smiled. He had begun with empty pockets, laughed at and dismissed, but now he understood. True wealth was never about coins or land. It was about the courage to dream beyond what you see, and to work until the dream becomes your reality. And somewhere deep inside, he knew the water he had found wasn't just for the field. It was the reflection of faith that had always flowed within him. Every great dream begins with an impossible thought, one that others laugh at, doubt, or ignore. But dreams don't need approval, they only need belief. Aarav's journey reminds us that even when your hands are empty, your mind can still be rich with vision. The world often tells you to think small, to settle, to stay safe, but life rewards those who dare to think bigger than their circumstances. When you believe in what you cannot yet see, you water the seeds of your own future. Success isn't about what you have, it's about what you believe you can build. So don't wait for perfect conditions or for others to understand your dream. Begin now, with faith, with effort, and with courage. Because every barren field, every empty pocket, every moment of doubt hides the potential to bloom if you just dare to think big.